Hi, this is Wanda from Alanda Craft, and this is our Quilt Blocks channel. And today I'm going to show you how to make this gorgeous Sister's Choice quilt block. So let's get started. Okay, so what you need are 2 strips of fabric. We've cut ours the width of the fabric, and they're 2.5 inches wide. So we've got one light and one dark, and I've sewn those together with a 1/4 inch seam. You'll also need 5 squares of the dark and 4 squares of the light, and these are 2.5 inches square. We also have 2 squares that are 6 inches, and they're one light and one dark. So the first thing I'm going to do is take my strip that I sewed together, so I have the light and the dark, and I'm just going to cut 4 blocks from that. So they're 2.5 inches wide. Okay. Right, so I've already cut 3, so here we go. So I have 4 strips that look like this. Now you remember that we cut across the width of the fabric, but you don't need, if you're only making 1 block, you only need a strip. Cut it around 10.5 inches to give you some wiggle room for trimming up. But most quilters generally make more than 1 block, so that's why we've used the width of the fabric, so that we can cut multiple blocks off this. So now we need to make our 8 half square triangles. So we take our 2 6-inch squares and we put them one on top of the other, and what we're going to do is just draw a line from point to point like this, and then we turn our ruler around and do it on this side. Okay, so I've got one here that I've already done, because what we need to do once we've drawn our lines on is we need to sew a 1/4 inch from that line on either side. Okay, and also down here. Now once we've done that, we need to cut our triangles. So now we want to line our ruler up with the halfway mark of our block. And so what we do is we measure the 3 inches across, and it should run straight through our diamond, which it does, and that will be our first cut. Our second cut, now we don't move our fabric, we move our ruler. We'll measure the 3 inches, and again we'll cut across this way. Our next cut will be along the line, one of the lines that we drew previously. So we'll line it up and we'll cut down there. We'll twist our ruler again, across the other diagonal, and we'll cut across that line. So I'll go and do that now, and then I'll come back and show you the 8 half square triangles. Okay, so now we're going to iron these open, so we take it over to the iron. Now always iron with the dark side facing up, because that's where we want our seam to face in the end. So we're just going to set the seam, and then we open that up. Okay. Just give it a little tug so that it lays nice and flat and you don't get that loop. Right, so once we've ironed all of these, we need to just make sure that they're square, so we'll square them up. Now we've got a video on how to square up half square triangles. There are 2 methods, so you just choose the one that you like, and we'll put the link below on how to do that. So now we have all our pieces assembled, what we need to do is lay out our pattern. So here we go. So first of all, we'll start in the middle, and we'll take one of our dark squares and just lay it down there. Now if we take our double squares and just lay them around, and this just gives us the basis for how it's going to look. And then we'll take our 4 corner pieces and we have our 5 dark pieces, which go in around here. Okay, now when we come to putting in our half square triangles, the best way to remember this is to put point to point and lay them down. Okay, so we put the 2 dark pieces together and place them in. I mean, even if you put them down wrong, it doesn't really matter, you can play around with them, but this just makes it nice and easy to put them together. So now it's time to assemble our block. So what we're going to do is we're going to do the 4 corner pieces first. So I'm going to start up here in one corner, and I'm going to take this piece here and lay it over top of that piece, and I'm going to take this piece, lay it over that top of that piece, and I'm going to sew each of these with a 1/4 inch seam. So I'll go and do that now. Okay, so I've started sewing my blocks together, and as you can see I've done them in lots of 2. Now we're going to start pressing before we sew. Now normally when you're doing a block, you iron the seam to the dark side of the fabric. Now in this block there are 4 instances, and that's these corner blocks, where you won't do that. You're actually going to press the seam to the light side. Now the reason that you normally do it the other way is so that the dark fabric doesn't show through on the front. So here we go. So I just go over, and because I want it to the light side, I set my seam with the light side on top. And then I open my fabric, and there we go. You can see there that it's sewn, it's pressed to the light. Now when I do the next one, I'm actually going to press that to the dark in the traditional method. So I'll set my seam with the dark fabric on top, so that when I open it, the seam will be leaning towards the dark, as you can see there. So I'll do that with all those 4 corner pieces, and now I'm going to sew them together. So what I will do is I'll place that on top of there, and I'll sew it together with a 1/4 inch seam. And I'm going to do that in each corner. So I'll go and do that now, and then I'll come back and show you the next step. Okay, so I've sewn all my 4 corner blocks, and now when you come to press this, you want to press towards the dark side, and you can see that that's the bulk of the dark material there. So that's what you'll do, is sew that, iron that towards the dark side. When I turn it over, it is towards the dark, as you can see. I turn it back, there we are, nice and flat. Okay, so now we're going to put the top row together and the bottom row, but this is what we're going to do. I'm going to take this first block of 4, and I'm going to place it right sides together over that centre block. Now you'll see that the seams are facing different ways, so you're going to get a nice join there. I'll just pop a pin in this to show you what we'll do next. Okay, so I'm joining those 2, and that will be like that. Then I will come back and I will pop the whole thing over here, and again those seams are facing in different directions, and so we'll get a nice join there. And we'll sew down each of those with a 1/4 inch seam. So I'll go and do that now. We'll do that there, and we'll do that for the bottom row. Okay, so now I've sewn the top piece and the bottom piece together, as you can see. And now I'm going to do the middle piece. So I'm going to bring these 2 squares over onto that middle square, sew it with a 1/4 inch seam, and then I'll bring the whole thing back and put it on here and sew it with a 1/4 inch seam. So I'll go and do that now. So now I've sewn the middle piece, and I'll just show you how I've pressed these seams on the top and the bottom. Okay, so I've pressed the middle squares with the seams facing out to the side. So you can see that. Whereas on this middle piece, I've pressed the seam here towards the dark, so towards the middle. That way, when I come to sew them together, the seams will all fit nicely to make nice joins. So we'll go to sew them, but to do that, I'm going to put my middle piece over top of my top piece. And you can see there that the seams will now nest in so that they will fit together nicely and make a nice join. So I'll sew along there with the 1/4 inch seam. Then when I come back, it'll be sewn together, and I'll place the bottom piece over the middle piece, and the same thing again. So that's how you make a Sister's Choice quilt block. Now you can make as many of these as you need to make a quilt. I'm going to be making a table runner out of mine. Now, if you have found this tutorial helpful, please give us a like and subscribe to our channel for more great tutorials.